In the US, $300 a day is not enough.
Yeah.
Like, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
I think you're going to need several $100 a day, if not $1,000 a day, just for your ads. $20K, just the agency fees.
So you've got 3 containers that you're having to fund before you've made a sale.
Before any sales are done.
There are plenty of sellers that know this stuff but refuse to talk about it. Why have you not done this until now?
Money. Today's episode is more around expansion to the US and giving advice from a brand to other brands that are listening and thinking about doing the same thing. Further side note, you're doing a talk about this for the Scottish Government in a couple of weeks.
I'm doing it on the 30th of July in Glasgow, at the Barclays Eagle Labs. That's true.
We will include a link to this, and if it's going live afterwards, we'll have a link to Scottish Enterprises stuff.
They're running events all the time.
There's all this stuff around this, so we'll have a link to that in the description. So
there's one other point I wanted to make on this. I know you said it's like the agency people, gurus out there that don't do this, but I think another point to make is that there are plenty of sellers that know this stuff but refuse to talk about it. I mean, you get grief sometimes from them, right? No, but we do. We get grief sometimes from other sellers who are like, why are you telling other people
what we're doing, how to do stuff. Which I don't get, right?
I agree with you.
Share the love.
We should share the love, but we do get grief from it.
So what we want to do today is talk about what I'm doing and my plans for expanding to the US. And Zamir is going to kind of grill me on it in some ways. We're just going to challenge me on what I'm planning. Yeah. Right?
Which is, to be fair, what I'm doing in the background anyway. You rely on me to do that, right?
Exactly. Sounding board. You need to have a sounding board and someone to keep you accountable. Yeah. So I want to talk through kind of what I've been planning, what we've done, where we're at now, and what the next steps are, right? That's kind of where we're at. That's what I want to do today.
Absolutely.
Okay. So first thing is, you want to expand to the US. It might sound dumb, but you need to ask yourself, why am I doing this? So why are we expanding to the US?
Yeah.
The most obvious reasons would always be it's a huge market. They're all English speakers. It's a lot easier to do than Europe in many ways. And when I say huge market, we're talking like 10x, right? So whatever you're doing in the UK, just add a 0 onto the end. And in theory, that's what you could be doing in the US. Which is a lot. That's massive. So that's good reason to go, but that shouldn't be the only reason why you're doing it. And so for us, yes, that's a big part of it. We are looking to strategically increase our sales and our revenue. Yes, but we also have a lot of demand. I get emails from people saying, hey, are your products available in the US? And I have to tell them, unfortunately not, and we can work out a way for them. That kind of stuff. But we know there's demand. I'm getting emails from people about it.
So first thing, there's a strong demand there.
Yeah, well, there's strong. We're going to get to this, but I know there's demand. I know we have a customer following there, and people are asking for us. So if you're thinking about the US, go for it, but ask yourself why. I think that's the initial thing. That's the important thing to ask. Then the other thing I did, so once I was we made the decision we're going to go to the US, the next question was, but if we go, is there a demand? Which is your point, right? Is there a strong demand? And that was my next kind of move, to understand what's the demand for our product still, because we know there's coconut products selling in the US, but us in particular, the product that we sell in particular, is there a demand for that? Can we meet a customer need there? And
specifically, we're talking about the fact that it's organic, the fact that it's fair trade, non-plastic, possibly.
And that's actually one of the points, right? So what I did is I looked at it in 2 ways. One is an analytical way, just looked at the data. Through the benefit of working at the Sway Up, we have the access there. We have AMP data, Amazon Market Pulse data, which is a tool that you created, and we can use that to understand what's going on in the market. So that was the clinical kind of like analytical approach that we did. I did that, got a sense of what the market looks like. But then I also just went onto Amazon, like where we're going to be selling, and I just searched coconut oil and just the topic, the common phrases that our customers will be looking
for. For me, this is the most underutilized research tool of all, right? Everyone buys these expensive,
tools,
Jungle Scout, Helium 10, all that, and it's like, just go to Amazon.
Just do what Amazon, do what customers are going to be doing.
Put a postcode in, a local postcode, right?
That's the important bit. So if you are going to do this, pick a US postcode, Beverly Hills 903
90210,
something like that. Yeah. And put in a postcode and do your searches, right? So just search for what your customers are going to be looking for. And I had to look at what came up. And so I did an analysis that way, where I was looking at who's coming up in those search terms, who's kind of owning them, what are their price points, what are their reviews, what is their product like, and then trying to map that against us. And for each of those, I found opportunities for us where we could come in. And so that told me if we went in, how would we position ourselves? And one of the really interesting things for us in particular, in the US, a lot of coconut oil comes in plastic containers. Right. And so a lot of people who are buying coconut oil are looking for stuff that's clean and natural and just free from bad stuff. They have there's like that whole slant to it. So ours is in glass jars. And so because of that, that's the whole thing. We have a whole strategy around shipping glass and making that work and everything.
It's not straightforward. It's definitely a USP and it's got a moat around it.
Yeah, exactly. So this is a really area of like strength for us. So that's the other thing that I did. So trying to understand where is everything happening and in terms of what are customers, what's going on in the market, really. Customers and competitors, understand that better. Then my next step was to go through and work out our COGS, because this is a massive thing I often see people can like fail on, even when they're launching in the UK. So we do talks on e-commerce strategy and doing that kind of stuff. The fundamental thing is understand your COGS, know your cost of goods, how much it's going to cost you to produce your product and ship it to a warehouse that you control. So that was my next step, really.
And you know half of that, because you know how much it costs to land your goods in the UK. So but landing them in the US is very different.
Yeah, exactly. So we had to get a quote for freight to the US, work out 3PLs. So again, all the stuff that we talk about on the pod and that we do day to day. So AWD, Amazon warehousing and distribution, right?
Yeah.
So that's going to be where the stock's going to go to. So it's going to ship directly from Sri Lanka into these Amazon warehouses.
And can I just point out that that's a major difference. So in the UK, you have your own warehouse. So you bring stock in, and then some of it, a lot of it goes into supermarkets, right?
Yeah.
But a portion then goes from there into Amazon. But that's really different for you in the US.
We won't have that in the US, right? Because it's not a home market. So what we're going to do is send this AWD. It's going to house it, and then
containers. Then so you full
literally
container
a full
straight
container.
in.
We're going to have a whole container of stock go into Amazon's warehouse, and then from there it's going to draw into Amazon's.
Yeah, they'll handle that.
FBA
They'll pull it into the different fulfillment centers.
Yeah. Anyone who's not familiar with AWD, because I know acronyms, Amazon Warehousing and Distribution. But what that is basically a 3PL. Or a third-party logistics company in large that's owned by Amazon. So you send your stock to Amazon's warehouse, and from there you can either send it off to other distribution channels like Walmart, your own website. You can do all your sales from there, or there's an option where Amazon will pull that stock into their own fulfillment centers, the FBA fulfillment centers, and you can sell on Amazon from that stock. So you have a bit of both.
Yeah.
So it's cheaper than sending to Amazon's warehouses, and you get more capacity, right? Because you don't get lots of storage capacity in Amazon's warehouses. Yeah. So I had to work that out. And so that's what we're going to do. We'll probably end up going to 3PL at some point so that we can have a bit more control over things. But that's what we're going to.
It's a really cost-effective way to start out. AWD.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's just a simplified way of testing things out. So we had a sense of our COGS. So back to the principle. So basically, ask yourself why you're going, then work out the demand and the market, and then third is understand your COGS. Once you've done those, you're and it's all working positively, and it's going to work smoothly. I should add, when we're doing our COGS, I also checked once we're selling on Amazon, what's going to be our margin, right? So make sure that's going to work. But we have a pricing strategy. So once you've got your sense of your COGS and your margins, the fourth step is regs. Understanding the regulations stuff there, making sure that you're going to be compliant once you go. So that meant we're in grocery, so labels have to be US compliant, FDA compliant, and then you have to be registered with the FDA as well. Fortunately, we had both of those already because we'd already been selling in the US, so that was all set.
I think this is also a challenging point for a lot of businesses, understanding what the regulations are in a foreign market in particular. It's hard enough in your own ones. Any advice on how you figure out what labeling you do require?
If you're doing this now, you are so lucky. When I was doing it before, there was no AI. It was just me kind of working it out. And so my hack at the time, it's not the best hack, it's not the best method of doing it, but it did work, was look at our competitor labels and just see what's on their labels and make sure we have that.
I mean, that's what I used to do as well. So
the US FDA has a really cool, very long PDF of how to do your labels as well. Me being a former lawyer, went and read through the whole thing, but it's actually very easy to use, and I'd recommend doing it
And
as
what
well.
you could possibly upload that to Claude or ChatGPT and ask it questions.
But now, exactly, it can either reference it directly,
Mm-hmm.
or you can just ask get AI to do that for you now. So you have a lot more. It's, of course, hire a professional. That's the ultimate advice.
Yeah.
But if you're bootstrapped and you're trying to
yeah.
work, like, just kind of get things through, those are 2 hacks that you could look at. So we have
all your labeling done.
Labeling's done. All compliance is done. There's one other compliance element, which is tax. Never fight the tax man.
Yeah.
So make sure you got that compliant. Now, the cool thing is, if you're selling on Amazon, Amazon will collect the sales tax for you and do all the filings for you, right? So that bit's taken care of. But if you want to sell on a platform other than Amazon, so your own website, Walmart, anywhere else, you're going to need to get your tax compliance sorted. So that's where you need to engage one of these, an accountancy firm. There's loads of them out there. And you can kind of engage one of those guys and get that going.
And you intend to do that eventually, but that's not where you're starting, right?
We're actually going to do that now, because we're going to launch, Amazon's going to be like day 0.
Yeah.
But day +1 is going to be Walmart and our website.
Right.
So
okay, fine. So those will come on.
I'm going to do that pretty quickly. So
Right,
I'm already
okay.
kind of talking to a couple now. And I happen to be at Shop Talk in the US, and that's where I engaged a few of those guys and found some. So we're going to leverage those.
Could we do a shortlist maybe of like recommended providers? Do you think that's a good idea?
Have a look at this on screen now. There's also going to be a couple we'll put some in the
Drop
description.
some links in.
And we'll use those guys. But yeah, so get your tax in order, and then finally produce, like, create your products and get them shipped.
I think that's a fair point as well, because you're going to have to label all these. The product that's going to the US will have to be different from the product that's going into the UK.
It's all different.
And I know often sizing and things are also different. Are you going to change?
Matters.
Size does matter, especially when it comes to foreign markets. Are you changing? Are you sticking with exactly the same as you got in the UK, or are you changing?
Yeah, it's a cool one. So at the moment, yes, we're keeping everything the same, because our product, basically all we're going to do is, this is all about minimal pivoting, right? This is keeping it lean, that whole lean business idea.
Right.
So our jars are all the same size. The labels are changing.
Right.
At some point, if demand out, like in
But
the
you've
US
done this
grows,
research anyway, so you know what the market's actually demanding.
Exactly.
Is it different?
There is some differences in the larger ones.
Are you going to send the 4 liters out there?
We will,
Right.
but the proportions are different, and that's
Right,
that's the next question, right? That's the next thing. What stock do you send, and how much of that stock do you send?
I was just curious. Is
Did
it
you
4
produce?
liter a gallon, or is it a 4
they
liter?
measure all in gallons and that kind
Yeah.
of stuff, right? So they don't. That's the thing. The units are different, so it's all on ounces or fluid ounces, not liters or mils.
So you're going to have
in
like
gallons.
a liter jar, but it's not going to be labeled as a liter.
Exactly, it's like a 37 ounce
Yeah.
jar. So that's kind of like one of the cool differences is making sure you've got that up correct. But the bit that we're working on is, well, we're producing all the stock. It's actually all produced and ready to go. But the questions around how much stock and which units do you send in?
Yeah.
Right. And so my feeling is it's really similar to when you start on Amazon at day 0, which is you don't really know. So you just kind of go and then you work it out, let the market kind of tell you what you need to do and send. What I did is I just looked at our last sales, our last kind of like 5-6 months of sales, to take away any seasonality, worked out the ratios, and then was like, okay, if I'm going to fill a container, what are the ratios that are going to work to that approximation? And that's what we are doing.
But I'm presuming we've also got some competitor data, had to look at their sales
Exactly.
and use
Yeah.
that and balance that
And
into it as well.
That's the big dynamic, right? Because it's kind of like, well, we have a strength against this one, so we're going to skew this one more and give it a different weighting. So some is analytics and then some of it is gut, right? And you kind of work that
In
two
terms
together.
of your advertising strategy and that visibility, because you're growing that from 0. Now, you're going to use the same listings. So you're going to
Oh,
have the
I love
same
this bit.
ASINs.
Yeah.
You're going to have your reviews and ratings from the UK that you can take with you.
Yeah.
But
So that's a big part of it, right? So all the listings that we're creating, we have to make sure we use the same barcodes. Because if we use the same barcodes, the reviews will carry over internationally. So it gives you a leg up when you're going in. Because this is where a lot of companies fail. It's kind of like they get everything produced, but then they don't leverage the same barcodes. So you're starting at 0, 0. You want to have at least a little bit of an advantage. Because because you need to get that traction.
Oh, I mean, that's going to be so important from a conversion perspective. So at least what we don't have to do is start fighting for reviews and ratings at the beginning. You've got those there. Visibility is going to be a key thing.
Yeah.
In terms of your expectations and margin for that first shipment and maybe the first couple of shipments, where are you? Where's your appetite?
This is where the long-term game comes in, right? Because it's that first question: why are you doing this, right? And for us, it's part of a long-term game, and so what we're looking at is the first few containers, we probably won't make as much money on them because we're going to invest heavily on the marketing side. So we're known in the US, but not to the extent we are here. So we need to get that following. That's the next bit in the planning run as well, right? So how are we going to get that traction? Obviously, advertising on platform, ads, and have a really good, strong ad structure. And then the second is off platform. So we're engaging people with affiliate marketing and just general brand awareness, just to kind of get that out. Now, this is where a lot of brands trip up as well because they don't appreciate, they see the scale of where things can go and the amount of zeros you can get in terms of revenue, but they forget or don't appreciate the cash flow required to achieve that, especially in terms of ads and brand awareness. And so you have to invest, if you want that huge reward, you have to invest heavily to start. And so that's the other part of the vision, which is planning for that awareness. And that's a huge expense.
So I'm actually going to ask you a question now that takes us a bit back to the beginning, but I think this is a really important point, is why have you not done this until now?
Money.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. It's a cash flow thing, right? Yeah. You have to produce the stock, advertise it, and then produce the follow-up stock that goes in afterwards, right? Because it's one thing to get your initial shipment in, get it sold, but then you have to replenish that. And so you
can't, if you run out of stock, you
just wasted all that influencer momentum, right? So it's really similar to the launch strategies we would tell people when you're going from the beginning, which is divide your budget into 3 pools. The first pool is the initial production. Second pool is your advertising. And the third pool is your replenishment. And unless you've got enough for all 3, don't start. Don't do it.
Yeah.
Just wait. And that's what we have done till now.
Yeah.
Because we now have the amount of capital that's required to pull this off.
And I think that's an important point because, like you said, it's not the first time in the US market, but I mean, times were bad, or Brexit and everything hits in, right? So that affects all the cash flow. You've had to essentially rebuild and recapitalize in the UK and get yourself in, build the war chest ready for this.
Yeah, exactly. And to get out. So that's kind of like the next thing. So if you're expanding in the US, this is kind of like that's where the battle's really going to be beginning. And I'm happy to do a follow-up on this to let you know how we're doing, but we've done the projections. Hopefully it all goes to plan. It never does exactly go to plan, but all that prep work's been done. And I think if we can get, the next big challenge right now is going to be get the stock in. Hopefully there's no hiccups on that. And then push it really hard.
And are you going to be keeping people up to date? Will you post some more stuff on social about this?
Yes. So I wasn't going to, but I think it's potentially going to be useful for people. So I am doing, like I mentioned at the start, my own little social bit. I'm coming back. And so I'll include some stuff on that. And Upside will no doubt have some content on as well. But if you don't even follow me, come to the SE talks. And we do a lot of talks on this stuff. And so there'll be links in the description of some of the talks you can do live, and you can grill Zamir on his views on how to do things as well.
Yeah, so this episode is coming out next Wednesday, which is the 29th, and the event is in Glasgow on the Thursday.
30th.
So people have got...
You're going to have one day.
Only those who actually listen to the pod on the day it's released. Well, if you are, well done. Thank you. We appreciate you.
I've got questions.
Go.
Please, grill.
We promised people this in the intro, some numbers.
Numbers.
So I think a lot of people will be thinking, okay, I want to do the same, but how much is it going to cost me? You mentioned the war chest. So can we throw some numbers at it? You know, do you have a budget, of an overall budget? Do you have budget set for each of these different areas you've spoken about? What is that war chest? What are the projections? How much have you? Yeah. What are the numbers?
Right. That's a really good question. Okay, so I can't say the specific numbers, but what I can tell you are the percentages. So what I'm forecasting is, let's go on this idea. A container of coconut oil is going to cost in the region of say 50 to 60,000 pounds, right? So it's not cheap. So we're going to keep that in mind. That's one big chunk of the cash, but we're not thinking about one container. We're thinking about 3 or 4 containers that are going to come in, right? So this is you're going to have like multiple ready to go. The second part of that is I'm forecasting a TACOS, especially in the first 6 months, in the region of say 20%. So that's huge.
Yeah.
So that means we are going to spend, for all the revenue that we generate, just to kind of like dumb that
£1
down.
and $5.
Yeah. So for every $5 we collect, £1 of that is going just to $1 of that is going to advertising. So that's huge. So we're going to invest a lot of money in the advertising side of things. But just to reference the difference, so in the UK, the coconut oil market monthly is around about 300k. In the US, it's over 3 million. So in the UK, we have a pretty decent chunk of that market. If I translate that same percentage to the US, it's pretty attractive.
It is. I think there's
attractive.
a point to make here is that in discussions on this, you are not going to chase the growth that you could get. You're going to chase the growth that you can manage.
Yes, that's a really good point. Yeah, because it's a cash flow thing, right? So it's not about what's the total we can get overall, but with the cash and the resources we have available to us, what's the most we can profitably achieve?
Yeah.
Now, that may mean in the short term we're going to be unprofitable or not as profitable as we want to be. But once we capture that market share, we can. And the cool thing about our range is that once you buy 1 or 2 of our hero products, because of how we positioned everything, you're quite likely to buy into the rest of the range.
And continue to buy as well. You've got a great return customer rate.
And our retention is really high.
Yeah.
We have like a 50% customer retention rate, which is huge. So realistically, if you're looking to expand in the US, advertising alone, you're going to need you like in the tens of thousands. So don't do this to be like, oh, I'm going to throw a couple thousand at it and I'll be fine. We're talking tens of thousands here. And depending on the cost of your product, you need to have at least multiple 6 figures in here just to kind of pull this off. Like you mentioned, Zamir, or like this is about not only producing the product, advertising it, which I've said we're talking the tens of thousands here, if not 6 figures, and then you're gonna have to have all the replenishment stock ready to go as well, right? Again, that's another couple 100,000 there.
And it's going to vary depending on which category you're in and what the cost of your product is. Yeah. But ultimately, especially from the advertising perspective, I mean, there is just so much search volume there. And you need to appear consistently. So at least for a handful of search terms. So you need, like you said, I mean, $10,000. Yeah. That's $300 a day. It disappears very quickly in the US.
In the US, $300 a day is not enough.
Yeah.
Like, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
I think you're going to need several $100 a day, if not $1,000 a day, just for your ads. Because the market's so big. Now, what you could do, one idea, is limit things and just say, I'm only going to advertise in these regions, or I'm only going to advertise at these times, and be really tactical on it. But even then, you're still talking about You need to have a whole.
It's a very different prospect from the UK. Yeah, I mean, that's what we're saying. The numbers are the potential and opportunities big, the sales big, but on the advertising side, the costs and everything, it scales along with the opportunity.
Yeah. Because, I mean, the other way to think about it as well is you're not the only one who's looking to do this, right? There's the people who in the US, where the US is their home market. That's the first bit. So they're already kind of grown up in that space.
But also plenty of international sellers.
And everybody else is trying to do that. They've been
attracted by that.
By the same level of zeros, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm taking us from a 300K a month market to a 3.5 million a month market, which is huge. But that also means I'm kind of getting in the fight with the big kids, right? And so gotta strap on the big boy pants and the big boy wallet.
Yeah.
What we're going to be doing is we're going to be engaging the full e-commerce funnel So a lot of people think about the funnel as purely just their platform, but for us, it's the whole platform, the whole funnel. So that means we're engaging the influencer and education side of things. So
That's
the top of the funnel.
Education. Yeah.
Yep. So we're going to be getting, that's TikTok. Realistically, that's TikTok, right? Because TikTok is a great education platform. We're going to engage that. That in itself, our agency cost, I can go through that, but that's going to cost us in the first 6 months. It'll probably cost us in the region of 20K, just the agency fees. And then we're going to have further down, that excludes also the influencers that we're hiring, the samples we're going to send out, all that kind of stuff. So there's a big budget available, like we've set aside just for that. Probably going to be mirroring around about that. And then we're going to work down the funnel. And as we come down the funnel, we're looking at probably in the region of something similar at a minimum on platform just for Amazon.
I think we're budgeting somewhere between, I mean, you tolerate up to about 30% of a target revenue for that first initial 6 to 8 weeks. So.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we're going to be looking at in the tens of thousands just for the first 6 months in terms of ads. So it's not cheap. We're not looking at like, this is entering the US can seem really cool and really fun, but I wouldn't do it just on a whim.
Yeah.
You need a bit of a war chest behind you to do it.
And then even on the advertising, even if we take like the first 4 weeks, you might need like a week of advertising before you even see a sale.
Yeah.
So if people don't understand that cash flow, then they might spend all their advertising in 1 week, not make a sale.
No one likes it when you blow your load too early.
I think the supply chain is the one that's always missed. That it's the biggest cost, almost certainly. Yeah. So if you consider the length of time it takes for products from when you probably have to pay for it before it ships to when it's available to sell, and the fact that if you want to spread that cost out,
cash flow is king.
Yeah,
right?
you're gonna, as you said, you for every container that's arrived and going onto the shelf, there's a container on the water and there's a container
in production.
Or just about to leave, right? So you've got 3 containers that you're having to fund before you've made a sale.
Before any sales are done.
Yeah.
And then if you keep in mind, Amazon, well, at least on the marketplace platform, you don't get paid, well, it's every 2 weeks, right? You get paid daily, but it's about 2 weeks. So you have to cash flow at least, I don't know, 4 or 5 months. So it's a big lead time. So this is, again, why I think don't do it. Into the US, expand internationally, you should do it. But
you have to be ready for it.
Be ready for it.
Yeah.
Don't do it on a whim. Have the war chest ready to go.
And generally our advice is always start in your domestic market, get that 100%, get that actually up and running because you need that generating your profitability, your cash and giving you some degree of scale. I think there's one other point that would be worthwhile coming back to. The benefit this will have to your overall business isn't just the growth in the US, right? Because what you'll do is you'll scale. That scale then gives you better economies of scale in terms of cost of production, which will then make your original
domestic market
more profitable, right?
Yeah, exactly. The whole thing feeds through.
And gives you resilience and some redundancy in terms of consumers, different marketplaces. So if something affects one market, it's not affecting the others much. There are huge advantages in doing this, but there is risk as well.
There's a big risk. So I think it's going to be exciting. This is going to be fun. But this isn't me being like, hey, look, here's my Lamborghini outside the window. Easy hack, this is how you can do it. But rather...
come see the hard work.
Come see the grind.
Thank you, Ali. Thank you for being so open. And I just want to be clear, you're going to also share the bits you get wrong as well as the bits you get right.
Yes. It's not just the highlights. This is going to be the full story, right? Yeah. So the full part of the whole thing. So no doubt there will be an episode at some point where I talk about the mistakes and
we've both made them.
Save you from making the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Learn from our mistakes.
Yeah. So team, thanks for joining on this journey. I hope you do expand to the US at some point or international markets. And give us a shout if you have any thoughts. If I've missed anything or anything I should be aware of, let me know as well. I'd love to benefit from
if you've got any questions for Ali, just ask.
Share the love. And we'll catch you on the next one. One love.
One love.